This is a board of 12 teams, none of which have ever won a Stanley Cup. Finals, 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 finals. So a lot of them have been in the finals. A lot of them have been on the cusp. In terms of having been favorites, I've seen the Blues as favorites. I've seen the Sabres favorites. I've seen Vancouver, Washington, Ottawa, San Jose. And there you go. Those are the ones I've seen as actual favorites going into a regular season in a magazine, online, through some major publication where they've said this team is going to win a Stanley Cup. So the question I've been asking myself today, after posting the video I did earlier about where you finish in your division and does that really affect where your hopes for a cup lie? In recent seasons, it's even less important to win your division than it has been previously. Pittsburgh didn't win their division last year. Chicago didn't win the year before. Like, there's so little to pick between teams that whether you win your division or not, it's not the key. But there are certain keys. There might be a way for me to figure out, and I haven't gone through and figured this out beforehand, whether or not these teams are going to make which of these teams is going to end that drought. There's certain things that most Stanley Cup winners have, so it's a matter of me finding out through this process which team, and this is not for right now either, this is for long term. Okay. But I'm going to just go ahead and tick off points here. So I'm going to give a point right now to any team that's currently in the playoffs or close, like within a couple of points. So St. Louis, Washington, Nashville, Ottawa, San Jose, Minnesota, Columbus, in or really close. I believe all of them are in. I'm going to give a point now based on whether or not a team has a Vezina level goaltender in their organization or someone who projects to be an NHL Vezina Trophy winner. So Holtby, obviously. I can't say that with St. Louis. I can't say that with Buffalo, and I can't say that with Vancouver. I can't say it with Arizona either. Okay. San Jose, I think Jones, while he hasn't shown it yet, I think he could go on that kind of a run. Ottawa, Craig Anderson has had very, very good seasons, but I don't know that he's a guy who's going to win that Vezina. I love UC Saros in Nashville, so I'll give them a tick there. Dubnyk in Minnesota. Florida, there's an article on TSN today about Reimer and how Reimer's happier in Florida and how his stats in Toronto weren't that bad. But as much as I like Reimer, and I do, I don't know that I qualify him as a Vezina level goaltender now or ever. Columbus has Bobrovsky. Winnipeg has issues. All right. Another thing you need to win the Stanley Cup is a horse on the blue line. You need a defenseman who can play about half the game. Your Drew Doughty, your Zdeno Chara, Nick Lidstrom, these guys who are able to play a lot of minutes. St. Louis, I'll say Peter Angelo. I know there's people who don't like Peter Angelo. I'm sorry, but he can play half the game. Buffalo, the potential's there for Ristolainen, but he hasn't shown it yet. Not consistently. He's very good, but I'm not putting him in that category. And when I get to the other teams, you're going to see this is not a slam against Ristolainen, because Vancouver doesn't have it either. Vancouver does not have a defenseman, and Ulevy hasn't played a stick in the NHL. I cannot project him out that way. Washington, not Shattenkirk, but I'll give them Carlson. Alzner's a fantastic defenseman. By committee, Washington has a really solid blue line, and even if Shattenkirk walks at the end of the year, and he probably does, they still qualify. Arizona, Ekman Larsson's very underrated. He really is. San Jose, sort of. They have this guy, Brent Burns. You may have heard of him. He's doing okay. He's got some facial hair. Ottawa, clearly Erik Karlsson. I don't know why people think I'm dissing Karlsson because I talk about Burns. I'm not dissing Karlsson. Karlsson's having a great year. It's just Burns is out of this world great right now. He's dragging San Jose to a division title. Nashville has PK Subban. Minnesota has Ryan Suter. Florida, I'm going to give him the check, but I'm telling you, if Ekblad's health, it's touchy. Werenski in Columbus, Seth Jones as well. Columbus is set for some time to come. Winnipeg's tricky. I'm sure Jacob Trouba views himself as being a great top four defenseman, a great top two, and I'm sure Byfuglien is popular with Winnipeg guys, but I don't see Byfuglien as being, you know what, to hell with it. Byfuglien, I'll give him a point for Byfuglien. Now, superstars, massive superstars, Crosby level, in terms of being able to drag a team and lead a team. I'm going to give St. Louis a point for Tarasenko, and I'm only going to give 1 point for having those star forwards. Buffalo, they have Jack Eichel, and they have a good young core there, and I'll give them a point for that. Vancouver, I love Horvat. Horvat is not at that level, and it pains me to say it. Washington, Ovechkin has dropped, but they still have Backstrom. They still have Kuznetsov. They still have a lot of good young talent there. I'll give them a point. Arizona, jury's out in Arizona, man. Lots of prospects, lots of young guys. There's no slam dunks in the Arizona lineup. Even Domi, who I thought at this point last year, I thought, man, he's going to be fantastic, has not been a slam dunk superstar yet. San Jose, yeah, they've got a lot. They've got a lot of really good young forwards. And Couture is flirting with being older than younger, but he's still pretty good. Ottawa, I'll give Ottawa the check. There's some really good talent in Ottawa. They've shown that they can score by committee. I think I underrated Turris. I know I underrated Turris. Nashville, I don't think they have that forward, other than Forsberg. All right. I'll give them the point for Forsberg. That's 4. I melded 2 together. Minnesota. Minnesota has a very good core, a very good uh, amount of scoring depth. I don't see that Crosby, Yzerman, Messier. I don't see that power, that forward that drags them. Sort of like Kessler did in Vancouver the one year. I don't see it. Florida, Huberdeau. Huberdeau has shown since he came back, even though Florida's not playing very well, Huberdeau's playing very well. So definitely points there. The Jackets have any number of guys, and I think Atkinson has really emerged this year, and maybe Atkinson's that guy. Winnipeg, yes, Mark Scheifele is Scheifele's damn good. He really is. In terms of what gets a team to that cup, now I mentioned Carolina having a Stanley Cup, and in my other video, and it helped Carolina that they had a weaker division. It helped them that they had an easier time getting there than another team did. It is almost impossible for me to track that on here. But I don't believe the Pacific is as difficult. And I don't believe the Atlantic is as difficult. Something about the oceans. But I can't track that on here. In terms of the future looking like they've got a core that's going to be one of the better cores in the league. I don't see it in St. Louis right now. I do see it in Buffalo. I see the plan in Buffalo. I want to give Vancouver a mark. If Brock Besser comes up next year and if he plays as well as he's supposed to, they get a mark. But right now I can't do it. Washington has a lot of good players, but along with Ovechkin, some of them are getting a little bit. They're at their peak now, and it's going to get dicey for Washington after this year. Arizona, again, I'll give them the point because there's so many prospects they can't fail. They can't all fail. And that may sound like a downer, but seriously, there's so many prospects in the Arizona system right now. one or two of them have to come through and make them better. San Jose, I want to give the point here. I really do. Uh, but part of the reason Hansen was brought in is because Hurdle didn't fit on that top line. There's a lot of young talent there. There's no telling if when Thornton and Marlowe are done, and Couture's a little past it, and Pavelski's a little older. Like, see where I'm going with this? There's no telling whether the young guys are going to step in and play well. The best example I can give is Detroit. When Detroit was on their way down, starting in 2010, everybody said, okay, well, Zetterberg and Datsuk are done, but Tatar and Nyquist are going to step right in, and we're not even going to notice a drop-off. And I heard that Tatar and Nyquist are going to be fantastic forwards. Oh, Detroit is full of all these great prospects. I remember the Islanders in the mid '80s. They lose the Stanley Cup final in '84 to the Oilers, and there was a little bit of doom and gloom. But then Pat Flatley and Pat LaFontaine came up, and there was a belief that the Islanders would be able to maintain themselves because Flatley and LaFontaine were great. Flatley was a good two-way forward. LaFontaine had elite scoring skill, so the idea was LaFontaine would be the next Bossy. It didn't quite work out that way for them. So it is hard for me to give points to a team based on what that core is supposed to do when they step in for the other one. Because I've seen too many cases over the years where, like the Oilers, when the Oilers were starting to fall in 90, even when they won that cup, the fall had started. And the perception was that these young kids that they were dotting the lineup with were going to just push up, and the Oilers were going to be, potentially at least a contender again, and it didn't really pan out for them that way. Ottawa, it's hard for me to give Ottawa that point either. Their prospects in net seem to be a bit thin. They've got Chabot on the blue line, which is great. Up front, I mean, they gave up on Lazar. Lazar got traded. I'm going to give them the point just because there's so many players in their 20s that are doing really well for Ottawa right now, like a Hoffman or a Stone, but it's iffy. Nashville, again, you got Forsberg, and Philip Forsberg showing that he can go on a hot streak. So I'll give Nashville the point. Minnesota, absolutely. Everybody talks about the Brent Burns deal, and all they got back was Charlie Coyle. Coyle's playing pretty well right now for Minnesota. So yes, they'd rather have Burns, but Coyle is a pretty good consolation prize for the Wild. Florida, everybody's going to want me to put a check in Florida for Sasha Barkov and for Huberdeau, and I have to. I have to. I just have to. Columbus, a lot of good young talent, and Dubois has the potential to step in as soon as next year. Winnipeg, all they have is young guys. It's a young team. There's a few older guys. Wheeler's older than a lot of the other guys. Little's older, but a lot of young talent there. And with Ehlers, Lanne, Nylander, not Nylander, Connor, who I was thinking of. I don't know why I said Alex Nylander. He's Buffalo's. And Scheifele, and just that general core that Winnipeg seems to be building with, I give them a good shot. So, if you're playing along at home, and you're saying, well, which team could come out of nowhere and potentially be a contender in the future to get rid of this cupless history? I would go with Columbus first, Nashville second, and sadly, the Capitals third. But tied with Senators, Sharks, and Wild. So your first place teams, Columbus and Minnesota. Second place, Washington, Ottawa. I really didn't want that to be nothing. I'm trying to think of something that and again, this is not me saying, oh, these guys are crap. This is me saying, if you're gonna build towards a Stanley Cup, these are the parts you need. These are the parts you have to have. And right now, some of these teams just don't have it. It doesn't mean they're not going to. But right now, I don't see it. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments below. By all means, if you have any corrections and suggestions, go right on ahead. Again, I am not trying to insult the Canucks. This is not about tearing them down. This is about the fact that when your team hasn't committed to that rebuild, so you're not getting your Jack Eichel, when your trying to draft best player available, but you've had a bad drafting history. So, Eric Carlson's over here as an example, whereas, you're drafting guys like Jordan Schrader, Jared McCann, and Cody Hodgson. Um, this is what's going to happen, and Jake Virtanen as well. This is what's going to happen. This is where that issue comes up. And this doesn't mean that I'm saying these are necessarily the best teams 5 years from now. I'm just saying going forward, Nashville and Columbus are in the best spot based on what they have. And a lot of this with Nashville is on me saying UC Saros has the potential to be a great goaltender, and Bobrovsky will stay at that level. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and I will talk to you all again very, very soon.